What's up, guys? My name is Con and we're back today with more Gearblocks, and today I actually built a wicked cool new engine. And I actually did this because I was visiting with my parents and my dad was talking about how he went to a museum and saw a bunch of old 18-cylinder radials, and I was like, you know what, I should build an 18-cylinder radial because I've only built one radial and it was terrible. And so I went and built an actual really good radial, and this one is kind of awesome. I'm going to take the toilet off because it's kind of an offset weight. But essentially I built an 18-cylinder radial here, and let's just get the display back. There we go. I'm not a big fan of the starter position, to be honest. But essentially, we've got two sets of 9-cylinder radials here. It's super, super cool. We use these 9-sided adapter plates, 9x40 plates here, and we make two 9-cylinder engines. And with radials, it's actually super cool because when I was looking up the timing on them, they're actually incredibly easy. They're odd numbers of cylinders, and if you have odd numbers of cylinders, the timing always just sort of skips a cylinder. So we're gonna take a look at 9. But anyway, let's rev this up. Let's run this first. Then we're gonna look at how it's built, and then we'll put it in a car because I want to try and put in that test chassis that I put the i4 on. Originally I wanted to run this against my V12, and then when I ran it for the first time, I'm like, why does the V12 put out more horsepower than the radial? And it's because on the radial I use the small cylinders, and on the V12 it's the big cylinders. So it's a completely useless comparison. When I built this, I was like, why is it 18-cylinder? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So let's rev it up. It's got a big weight on it. I am not putting it on my adjustable dyno because there's a lot of comments on the adjustable dyno video. I got a lot of suggestions from you guys. I want to really fix it up. There's a lot of things I could do to make it a little bit better, more consistent. I still want to have an adjustable dyno, but anyway, for this, we're just putting a big old weight on it. And you can see it's awesome. I love radials. It's tons of torque, like very low. So I cranked this up to 4,000 RPM red line, but it still has like 10,000. See, it's got at about 2,200, about 2,000. Let's just bring it down a bit. We get to almost our max torque, which is just over 1,000 Newton meters, about 1,070. And so you can see it's really cool because we have extra torque at the low end. We also have a longer stroke length on this. The blocks, in order for this to fit dimensionally, they have to be 2 blocks away from the center instead of 1. So it does have a longer stroke length, which should give us a little bit more torque. But you can see it'll crank out. So this will go, see, it went up to about 1,060, 1,070 Newton meters of torque. Now you can see it's dropping off on the torque curve. We are still increasing in horsepower, obviously, because horsepower is just math. Basically, it's torque and RPM, right, combined, and then the conversion factor. So we are increasing in power as we go up. But you'll see we'll limit out probably somewhere around like 380 kilowatts, maybe, and, you know, 1,000 Newton meters of torque. So it's not bad, right? In terms of actual numbers, I can convert that real quick. So 1,000 Newton meters of torque is roughly 700 foot-pounds-ish if you're into the imperial measurements. And then, of course, the horsepower rating, 350 kilowatts is roughly 500 mechanical horsepower. So we're putting out, you know, 500 horsepower, 700 foot-pounds of torque, but really cool engine. If we compare that, of course, to the other engine, we're gonna look at how that's built, don't worry. But if we compare that to, like, you know, the i4E, right? So, oh, this one revs really high, but you can see just how low that is. Like, we're 1/4 the torque, like a quarter of the torque and a third of the horsepower, maybe, at 4,000 RPM, right? So just, I mean, obviously we have 18 cylinders instead of 4, but I do love the different sound too. Anyway, let's go take a look at how it's built, and then we're gonna try and put it in a car and see if the car will actually get powered. I'm gonna take that i4 little car I had and just throw this thing in it and see what it does. I really don't know what to use radials for yet. Like, obviously I'd love to use it in a plane. You can tell right away why radials are a thing, and I kind of love that. Like, if you look at, this is a 4-cylinder engine, right? And if you look at this 4-cylinder engine, yeah, it doesn't have a bigger form factor vertically, but it's not that much smaller vertically, and it has a huge form factor in comparison, like, horizontally, right? Like, this engine could fit in such a small space compared to this. It's no wonder they use radials. And then on top of that, you know, you could have heat sinks on every single one of these cylinders. So as the air brushes by this as you're flying through it, you know, the cylinders are just naturally cooling through the air. The only thing I wish I could do in Gearblocks, and maybe you guys know in the comments down below, is get the pipes all kind of configured. You'll notice, like, each cylinder has to be piped directly, and as far as I can tell with the piping, it's all rigid pipe pieces. So I sort of, you know, every single cylinder has its own throttle, essentially, and every single cylinder has its own exhaust that just sort of, you know, kind of makes a, you can see it just kind of poops out a star pattern. Anyway, it's not really a huge deal, but, like, it would be cool, obviously, to wrap all the piping up and have them go to one spot. I don't know if that's even possible. But anyway, Cool stuff. So, radials. Love them, love them, love them. We've got parts, of course, in the game. We do have propellers. If the dev adds aerodynamics, we're gonna go hard on making some planes. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Right, so let's take the radial, let's look at it. So, really simple, actually, to build a radial. It's one of the easiest engines to do, believe it or not. It might look more complicated, but it's actually quite simple. So this is all you do. You take a 9-cylinder radial and you duplicate it, and that makes an 18. You duplicate it and you offset it by 180 degrees, which is why you'll see that all the cylinders are offset. But it ends up looking like super cool. And if you look in real life, 18-cylinder radials seem to be made this way as well. I was looking at some old airplane engines. But anyway, why we have 9 cylinders? This is so cool, and I kind of thought about it, and then once I actually sort of visualized it, it made sense. So we have 9 cylinders. There's always an odd number of cylinders on a radial. One of you guys pointed that out in the comments on a couple videos, and you were like, hey, Con, by the way, radials, you made a 4-cylinder radial, and that's wrong. It should always be an odd number of cylinders. And it makes sense. When I was building radials, I was stupid, and I wasn't really looking at the timing, so I was just going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like all the way around in the ring, right? But a radial timing actually like skips a cylinder. So it goes like here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here. And then you'll notice now we skip that. We're back here, we're back here, we're back here, we're back here. And then look, now we'd be back at the start. So by always skipping a cylinder, you always make, see, we can just keep going through, right? And every time we do, see, look at that, boom, 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 right? So we always end up back at the exact same spot we previously were at, you know, with the new timing. I'm just going through the colors just so you can like really visualize what's happening, right? So that's me following the timing order through the cylinders, right? We can just paint them back to black, doesn't matter, so it's like that, right? But it makes so much sense because every time a cylinder is firing, you're always evenly spaced between each cylinder firing, which would just smooth out your engine, right? Like it would make your engine run literally as smooth as possible. And then of course, to make the other side of the radial, we essentially just take a second one here and we just, you know, grab it in the middle. We'd have to swap this axle to the other side of the axle, which is this one here. Instead of the, you know, the rear, it's the front crank or whatever. Right, and then you just grab this whole thing, and it's kind of a pain, but you do this and flip it, and there you go, and that's an 18-cylinder, right? I mean, I don't know if I actually offset that in the right spot, but I might have. But essentially, that's it, you know? And there you have an 18-cylinder radial. We obviously have 2 starters on this. We'd have to clean that up. But pretty freaking cool stuff, in my opinion. I'm super excited about it. But again, it puts out, you know, 500 horsepower. The V12 that I built with the bigger cylinders puts out, you know, 1,750 horsepower, I think it was, is something like that, and like 1,500 foot-pounds of torque or some nonsense. Oh, here we go. First car with engine. Perfect. All right, so if you guys didn't see this video, it's pretty simple stuff. I put the i4 into a car, right? We can steer. We can throttle up with W. It's just a straight drive with a centrifugal clutch. But, you know, it kind of works. It pulls a bit to the right. A lot of people are saying I have some chassis weight problems. But, you know, we got a diff in the back. It's a rear-wheel drive, straight axle to the back. You know, it works. I realized I didn't put an alternator on my radial engine. But, I mean, I feel like a radial engine would probably have a little pocket probably in behind where they've got all the accessories, like alternator timings and stuff, coming off gears and things like that. I'm sure they have a hydraulic pump that will come off that. I mean, it's a plane, right? It would have to have a hydraulic pump. Well, for bigger planes, I don't know if the older ones would have used that. Like an older, like DC3 or something with a radial, it probably would have been still cable pulled, right? Not hydraulics. I don't know. No, because landing gear, how would you deploy? You'd need hydraulics for landing gear, right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how this all worked back in the day. Probably hydraulics. Okay, we need to stop. Yeah, no, we're gonna drift. Yeah, this is, yeah. I need to make a drift car too. Sorry, I'm geeking out. I love this game. Like, I really do. The more I've been playing it, I've actually, you know, it's funny. I don't have nearly the hours in this game that I have in Scrap Mechanic. In case you guys don't know, I do play this other game called Scrap Mechanic sometimes. It's all right. But yeah, the more Gearblocks I play, the more I've just really been enjoying, you know, doing all the stuff. I got to start, like, really customizing things. Like, for example, I could lock all the connections on my motors the way the dev does. So when you pull the motor off, you don't have this happening where, like, you know, half the motor parts don't come with it. But anyway, we got to mount our radial into this somehow. I feel like I should just make it a mid-engine, put it behind the seats. That's probably, you know what, that's probably easier. But then we won't have weight on the front. Is that going to be a problem? We're probably going to understeer more. I mean, we could put weights in the front and stiffen the rear suspension. No, I'm gonna put the radial up front. I want the weight in the front, so we're gonna have to bring this up probably on a pulley or something. Let me see, how big is this stinking radial? It's probably pretty large. 18 cylinder. Yeah, there we go. So let's get you. I don't need this. Okay, we don't need that. This is our output shaft. We're still gonna run it with the centrifugal clutch. Oh boy. This is yeah. So this is an interesting part too, which is kind of funny. This little bit here has to exist. Because since these are offset by 180 degrees, the grid of like this block and this block don't actually line up. Well, they only do on one connection point. So it's the bottom of this one lines up with the top of this one. So you have to have this really long beam that goes all the way around just to connect up to there. And it doesn't matter. We could wrap like more of the bottom of this, but yeah, this beam has to go all the way just to hold it. It's just to prevent the engine from pulling apart. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's, okay, yeah, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna delete this. We're gonna extend the plate forward. Like so. We're gonna take the radial. And we're just gonna drop it right here like that. That's great. This actually looks like some sort of a tractor pull thing. I love it. All right, and then we're just gonna go from here. Yeah, over to there. And then bring you up to here. Like so, and we're gonna belt drive this. I know it's not great, but like I don't think belts actually slip in this game, so I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter. I'm not positive on that. I know you can break a belt in this game. You can actually have belts be flexible connectors. It's something else we got to get into at some point in time. I don't know what to use it for yet, but we'll figure something out. But you can have a belt actually be like a flexible connector where the belt can kind of move a little bit on suspension, and as long as it stays within a certain sort of, let's say, tension or distance, I guess it's probably distance between the two pulleys, but as long as you stay within a certain distance between the two pulleys, they can actually move together. So we could theoretically make some sort of a rear axle drive system that's on suspension and uses pulleys to drive it instead of you know, instead of gears. But anyway, let's just 1 to 2 this. 2 to 4. That doesn't hit the ground, right? It kind of sucks. I mean, it goes as low as the diff, so I guess it's not that bad. All right, so there we go. So that's gonna 2 to 4. I guess the question is this still forward? It probably is, right? Turn it on. Of course it's not. Of course. Why would I build my engines with any sort of consistency, right? Why? God dang it. All right, do we have brakes? We do have brakes. All right, so we're gonna just flip this. Oh my goodness, yeah, this is another thing that happens sometimes. For some reason, this creation is saved on the, like, grid of one of these weirdly offset this piece. No, I don't know which one. See, it's like we're not on any, anyway, it doesn't matter. The car spawns on an angle. All right, so I gotta gear this first. All right. Oh, right. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm not changing that. Never mind. If I want to change all the throttles, there's 18 cylinders on this. There's 18 throttles because each cylinder has its own throttle. Right now, I've got engine throttle set to F because that's just like the default thing. I guess I could remap my steering to like B and E, but yeah, if I were to change that to W, I have to go change all 18 throttles. I don't feel like doing that. Okay, well that's... Okay, well we got a couple problems. One is my gears aren't meshed. That's nice. That's did you even pay attention to what the gear mesh was? No, you just slapped some gears down and hoped that they fit. You literally didn't even check. Yeah, no, that's great. There you go. Let's reduce that a little bit even further. How's that? Okay. Okay, it basically wants to kick in right away. That's nice. But if I hold the brake, it spins against the clutch, so that's good. And then it can rev right through the brake. Okay, we are reducing it a little too much. I think we need to go the other way. You know, at some point in time, I should actually build a car chassis with a proper transmission setup in it, like a 3-speed gearbox or something, and a little transmission, some brakes, a nice suspension setup, and a big wide engine cradle in the front so I can test all these different engines on a consistent chassis. It's kind of what this is, but this one, it needs some work. It's not bad, it just needs a little bit of, you know, fixing. This chassis pulls. This chassis is annoying that it pulls. It's my bad. We're gonna build a better chassis. Don't worry. We'll get there. I don't know why it pulls so aggressively, but it does. And I don't know if it's the torque of the engine. It always pulls to the right. The chassis is symmetrical, but still a little understeery. This engine sounds so sick, though. Oh, it's so good. I probably just need sway bars, honestly, and like stiffer suspension. Do I only have rear brakes too? No, I have brakes on all 4 wheels. That's right. You know what? It's not bad. It's actually kind of sick. I'm a big fan of how this engine sounds. It definitely needs some gearing. Oh. No. We're okay. I'm gonna go try the other track, but this is kind of cool. I need to fix the chassis. I think the next objective is gonna be making a chassis that doesn't suck. I don't really know how to do that though, because every time I try and build a chassis, it always pulls in one direction or doesn't steer straight. And maybe it's because I'm not going heavy enough. Like the dev has all these vehicles that actually do well, but I'm pretty sure they're all heavier. I should check some of their weights and stuff. But I don't think I'm heavy enough. Like I think we just need to make a much heavier vehicle, and yeah, make it have beefier suspension. I probably should like start mapping controls so that like you only have control of the vehicle when you're sitting in it. But it's fine. That vehicle just keep imploding. I'm gonna go drive up this road. We definitely need a better gear ratio. Like I'm full throttle right now and it doesn't pick up speed. I really do need a gearbox. You need that low end gear to get you your torque off the line, then a nice middle gear for cruising, and then a high speed gear. And that's essentially what we need. And that would be our 3-speed gearbox. I should look up what like proper 3-speed gearboxes were. Although I'm pretty sure back in the day like it was 4 speeds were really popular. Some of the old vintage muscle cars. Like, this is all right. It kind of drives like a Sunday driver, but like I'm holding the throttle wide open and the gear ratio is just too insane. We are also hill climbing. All right, you know what? I'm gonna fix this. I mean, it's definitely better. We are also climbing up a hill, but we are picking up speed quicker. Yeah, gearboxes are gonna be huge. Like, I mean, the game's called Gearblocks. I guess that makes sense. But like having a proper transmission that can handle all the different, yeah. Like as soon as we get down on the hill, we're gone. Picks up speed like crazy. Love that. We're gonna have to slow down here in a sec though. Can we just, this car, you know what? Other than the fact that it pulls a little bit to the right, it's not bad, but maybe weight would fix that. Maybe it is just a weight issue. Like if you had weight and more load on the suspension. Or is it because, like, is the diff not centered? I thought the diff is centered though. Like all the torque would be maybe spinning it that way too. No, because this radial spins in a different direction than the other engine because we had to flip it. Yeah, I don't know. This is a puzzle to me. Let me know in the comments down below. We got to build a better chassis. We need to build a racing chassis that we can slap all sorts of different engine configurations into and then really like start testing them and then put them into like proper dedicated builds for what they are. But yeah, it's this pull is weird. Great when you're taking right turns though. I think it's weight. I think it honestly, if we had more weight on the chassis, beefed up the suspension. Right now we're on soft suspension. If we had, you know, some relatively rigid suspension, you know, because with it's kind of like RC, really. I don't know why I'm not thinking about this, right? I have a road RC car for racing, like on the roads, and it has very stiff suspension, like incredibly stiff. It still has flex to it, but it's basically like as soon as you hit a bump, you want your wheel to drop right back down onto the road and get traction again for control and all that stuff. Whereas my drift cars are super soft on their suspension because, you know, you want your car to be able to absorb impact, but you also want your car to load its weight. So when you go with a drift car and you're shifting from like throttle from forward to back or you're braking, you want it to load your front and rear tires differently, right? So as you throttle up, you want your, at least with RC anyway, I mean real life drift is probably a little different, but you want your, basically when you throttle up, you want your rear tires to load, which gives you more acceleration. And then when you know, slow down, you want it to load down on the front, which lets you turn in and do your transitions and stuff. Anyway, long story short, it's I think I've got the wrong suspension set up for the road car here. I think this just needs to be rigid, which like maybe I could try right now just by right clicking on these, but I don't think it's gonna. Spring rate's 15. Like what if I go to 500 and just like absolutely rigid this right out. Because I think that's the kind of, like, the damping is low too, which, you know, that's how much it's going to wobble. Again, with road cars, we usually have a relatively rigid dampening, and then damping, sorry. And then with the drift cars, it's always really, really soft, right? All right, let's see what this does. Rev her up. This is uber stiff suspension now, but it's still suspension. It's just stiff. Yeah, you can see it, like, it's bouncing on the damping, but it still pulls to the right a bit, though, which is interesting. Not as bad, but it's still there. I don't really know what the deal is with that. You can feel the car kind of understeers a little. I wanted to say understeers less, but I don't really think so. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what else you want to see in Gearblocks. I'm really excited to build some better chassis now. I've done a fair number of engines, and I'm feeling pretty confident in my ability to do some engines. I mean, some of the timings of, like, these V's are weird. Like, V timing is still kind of confusing to me. I understand radial timing, it's pretty simple, and linear timing is obviously relatively easy. But the V timings is just, it's weird to wrap your head around. So I gotta look into that a little bit more, understand how V timings are determined, and that way we can make more custom engines. I also had a suggestion, which I thought would be super cool, to combine like a radial with a V, or like a radial with a linear, and combine multiple engine types together into one engine and just see what happens, which is kind of silly. I don't know what the game would do. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you all next time.